Imagine pulling off the heist of the century, escaping a high-security prison, and spending decades sipping cocktails on the beaches of Rio while the whole world watches, unable to touch you. This isn't the plot of a Hollywood blockbuster. It's the real-life story of Ronnie Biggs, the cheeky, charming rogue who turned a life of crime into an international legend. But how did a small-time crook from South London become one of the world's most notorious fugitives? And what was it about Brazil that made him untouchable? Buckle up, because this is a story of audacity, luck, and a loophole that left authorities powerless. Ronald Arthur Biggs was born on August 8, 1929, in Stockwell, South London, to a working-class family. His father was a bus driver, and his upbringing was typical for the time, marked by financial struggles and a lack of opportunity in post-World War II Britain. As a boy, Biggs was mischievous and often got into trouble. He showed little interest in school and was drawn to the excitement of petty crime. By the time he was a teenager, his brushes with the law had escalated. At the age of 18, Biggs was convicted of breaking into a house and served his first stint in prison. This marked the beginning of a life shaped by crime and defiance of authority. Throughout the 1950s, Biggs continued with petty thefts and robberies, often serving short sentences. But it wasn't until the early 1960s that he became involved in more serious criminal activity. By then, Biggs had met Bruce Reynolds, a skilled and ambitious thief who was planning one of the most audacious heists in British history. The Great Train Robbery. The robbery was meticulously planned, involving a 15-man gang who targeted the Royal Mail train travelling from Glasgow to London. On the night of August 8, 1963, the gang tampered with the train's signal lights, forcing it to stop at Brydego Bridge, a remote location in Buckinghamshire. The gang overpowered the train crew, with the driver, Jack Mills, suffering a serious head injury. Over the next few hours, the robbers loaded £2.6 million in cash, equivalent to around £50 million today, into their vehicles and fled to a hideout at Leatherslade Farm. Biggs played a relatively minor role in the heist, primarily responsible for recruiting a replacement train driver who ultimately couldn't operate the train. However, the success of the robbery changed his life forever. The gang's celebrations were short-lived. Police discovered their hideout and quickly began piecing together evidence. Within weeks, most of the gang members, including Biggs, were arrested. In 1964, Biggs was convicted and sentenced to 30 years in prison, one of the harshest sentences handed down. Biggs served just 15 months of his sentence before staging a dramatic escape from Wandsworth Prison in July 1965. With the help of accomplices, he climbed over a 30-foot wall using a rope ladder and fled to a safe house. From there, Biggs went on the run, first hiding in the UK before fleeing to France, where he underwent plastic surgery to alter his appearance. Using false documents, he continued his journey, eventually landing in Australia. In Australia, Biggs reunited with his wife, Charmian Powell, and their 2 young sons. They lived under assumed names in Melbourne, but the pressure of being a fugitive never subsided. When British investigators began to close in, Biggs fled once again, this time to Brazil in 1970. Brazil became Biggs's sanctuary for a number of reasons. 1. No extradition treaty. At the time, there was no formal extradition treaty between Brazil and the UK. This meant Brazilian authorities were not legally required to hand him over. 2. The legal loophole. In 1974, Biggs fathered a son, Michael Biggs, with a Brazilian woman, Raimunda de Castro. Under Brazilian law, the parent of a Brazilian-born child could not be extradited, ensuring Biggs's safety as long as he remained in the country. 3. Public sympathy and celebrity status. Biggs's story of daring escape and evasion made him a folk hero in Brazil. He lived openly, granting interviews, mingling with celebrities, and even collaborating with the punk band the Sex Pistols on the song "No One Is Innocent" in 1978. The media portrayed him as a lovable rogue, further solidifying his status as a cultural icon. Biggs's notoriety led to an extraordinary incident in 1981. A group of British mercenaries kidnapped him, intending to smuggle him back to the UK. However, the plan fell apart when their boat broke down off the coast of Barbados. Biggs was returned to Brazil, where authorities reaffirmed their refusal to extradite him. Biggs's life on the run took a heavy toll on his family. His wife, Charmian, returned to the UK with their 2 sons. Unable to endure the constant uncertainty and danger, she eventually divorced him. Meanwhile, Biggs maintained a close relationship with his Brazilian son, Michael, who later became a minor celebrity in Brazil himself. By the late 1990s, Biggs's health had deteriorated significantly. He had suffered multiple strokes and was in need of constant medical care. In 2001, he decided to voluntarily return to the UK, stating that he wanted to walk into a pub as an Englishman and buy a pint of beer. Upon his return, he was immediately arrested and sent back to prison. Biggs spent the next several years in custody, but his health continued to decline. In 2009, he was released on compassionate grounds, having served a total of about 10 years in prison. Biggs spent his final years in a nursing home where he remained defiant about his life choices. He passed away on December 18, 2013, at the age of 84.